Welcome to a new episode of Cheaters Always Cheat. Like, subscribe, and share to stay connected.
Ava, who is 27 years old, and I have been blissfully married for 2 years. We both hail from the same charming, small town, a community so tight-knit that practically everyone knows each other, and the local church is the hub of social and spiritual life. My family made the move to this town when I was just 10, and we started attending the same church as Ava's family, which became a foundational aspect of our lives. After completing my college education, the allure of the tranquil, uncomplicated life of my hometown beckoned me back. It was upon my return that I reconnected with Ava. My admiration for her, which had been quietly nurtured over the years, finally had a chance to flourish. We began dating and our connection deepened rapidly. Just a year into our relationship, we were ready to commit to marriage. We planned a modest wedding, celebrated in the very church where we had both grown up. The ceremony was a joyful celebration with close family and friends, all of whom were delighted with our union. They supported us wholeheartedly, contributing towards our simple but meaningful wedding expenses. A distinctive choice in our relationship was our commitment to abstain from intimacy until after our wedding. Ava felt strongly about waiting until our wedding night, a principle I came to respect and uphold despite my initial reluctance. While my own engagement with the church had diminished over the years, Ava's dedication remained unwavering. She was deeply involved in various church activities, never missing a meeting or event. She was also a proactive member of the evangelism team, dedicating her weekends to spreading the church's message through prayer and outreach. Throughout our courtship, our expressions of affection were reserved to kissing, and Ava never agreed to spend the night at my place. She firmly believed in preserving intimacy for marriage, seeing it as a fulfillment of divine wishes and a testament to our commitment to each other. This decision underscored the strong foundation of faith and mutual respect on which our relationship is built. During the period leading up to our marriage, I held the belief that Ava had never been intimate with anyone, as she had never suggested otherwise. Thus, I naturally assumed she was a virgin. It came as a shock to me on our wedding night when she disclosed that she had been intimate with previous boyfriends, choosing later to adopt a new path in life. Processing this unexpected revelation took time, and I made a concerted effort not to let it overshadow our new marriage. Ava was an exceptionally caring and affectionate partner, treating me with profound respect and kindness. Her lively and comforting presence made everyone around her feel welcome, effortlessly engaging with both friends and strangers alike. Professionally, I was employed as a driver for a logistics company, while Ava opted to stay at home. This decision allowed her to devote more time to her religious commitments. Despite my modest income, I strived to provide for us, and Ava contributed financially through a stipend from the church, which she used for her personal expenses. Post-marriage, I harbored hopes that Ava's intense involvement with church activities would lessen, allowing us to spend more time together, strengthening our familial bond. Although I supported her decision to stay at home, I looked forward to enjoying more quality time as a couple. However, my expectations were not met. Ava continued her active church life, attending services, meetings, and evangelism events nearly every day, particularly in the evenings, which greatly reduced our time together. When Ava came home in the evenings, she would quickly eat dinner and go to bed. On weekends, she left early in the morning for various church-related activities such as meetings, charity events, and other commitments. She'd return for a short while in the afternoon only to leave again and come back late at night. I frequently voiced my concerns about her deep involvement with the church and how it diminished the time we could spend together. However, her reply was always consistent. She reminded me that I should have known what I was committing to when I proposed. She would end the conversation there and leave the room. Our grievances often escalated into arguments that resulted in days of silence, lasting 2 to 3 days at a time. Before we got married, we had discussed and agreed to postpone having children for at least a year, hoping to use the first year of our marriage to fortify our bond, especially considering our somewhat distant relationship during our dating phase. However, the unfolding of events during our first year of marriage was not as we had hoped. Ava underwent a drastic change, becoming someone quite different from the woman I had dated. This change was not what I had envisioned for our life together. Our primary point of contention was her unwavering dedication to church activities, which steadily drove a wedge between us. This commitment, while important to her, often left us with little shared time, complicating our efforts to grow closer as a couple and putting a strain on our marriage. Despite my frequent objections, she remained unwavering in her dedication to church activities. My job prevented me from joining her for midweek services and other church programs. Even when I had the chance, I preferred to spend my time differently. Each time I expressed my concerns, she made it seem as though I opposed her faith, which was not the case. I was merely trying to emphasize the need for a balance between her religious activities and our marital life. As time passed and a year went by without us starting a family, I brought up the topic again. She showed little interest in the discussion, bluntly stating that her religious commitments were her priority. She implied that I should support her focus rather than pressuring her about children. Frustrated by her consistent disregard, I turned to her parents for advice. I detailed how she had been neglecting me, our home, and her duties as a wife. Her parents were shocked by what they heard. A few days after my talk with her parents, Ava confronted me, infuriated. She insulted me and called me hurtful names for involving her parents. Reflecting on these events now, I regret not considering a separation when her neglect first became apparent. Despite numerous instances that made me rethink our relationship, my love for her led me to disregard her shortcomings. I continued to strive for a resolution, hoping to mend our strained relationship despite her changing attitude and her apparent prioritization of religious commitments over our bond. Even with all the challenges, my deep affection for her endured, and I consistently treated her with love. Since Ava was often absent from our home due to her commitments, I assumed the bulk of household duties. This included cooking, managing the laundry, grocery shopping, and all other domestic tasks. This arrangement persisted for another year until she shared the news of her pregnancy towards the end of our second year together. Her announcement filled me with immense joy, as I anticipated that her pregnancy would lead to a decrease in her church activities. True to my expectations, Ava continued her church engagements during the early part of her pregnancy, but as she entered her second trimester, she began to stay home more often. One significant factor contributing to her decreased church attendance was the complications arising during her pregnancy, which led her doctor to recommend she avoid any strenuous activities. With Ava no longer participating in church events as frequently, her church community began to come to her. They visited in groups on some days, and individually on others, always bringing gifts, fruits, and other thoughtful items to cater to her cravings. This gesture of love and support was a testament to the strong bonds Ava had formed through her years of dedication to the church. Many in the community had known her since she was a child and treated her almost as if she were their own daughter. Besides visits from regular church members, our church pastor made it a point to visit our home weekly. He often brought fruits and other treats for Ava. I noticed that Ava always seemed especially radiant and excited during these visits from the pastor. While I didn't give it much thought initially, I frequently came home from work in the evenings to find his car parked in our driveway. From time to time, I left them at home while I attended to errands or other external duties. I didn't harbor any suspicions initially, trusting in the integrity of our pastor and confident in Ava's commitment to our shared faith. During this period, the pastor's visits to our home became a regular occurrence, with him often bringing various items for Ava. Simultaneously, I continued working as a driver for a logistics company and took up an additional evening job to meet the growing needs associated with Ava's pregnancy. This period required significant adaptability and support at home, ensuring that Ava could rest adequately despite the many sleepless nights that took a toll on me. One aspect of the pastor's visits that began to stand out was the considerable sums of money he regularly gave Ava. Initially, I did not question these transactions, but as they became more frequent, my discomfort grew. When I confronted Ava about it, she dismissed my concerns, insisting that the pastor was merely extending his generosity as he would to anyone in need. Following several disputes, however, she agreed to stop accepting the money. Despite her assurances and attempts to justify the pastor's actions as typical generosity, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that lingered. The pastor's visits persisted, and I sensed that he and Ava were becoming increasingly close, possibly sharing private conversations beyond my awareness. One particular afternoon, I remember deciding to make fresh juice for the pastor during his visit. I left Ava and him in the living room, and as I prepared the juice in another room, I overheard them whispering. Yet, the moment I re-entered the living room, they abruptly switched to normal tones, engaging in seemingly ordinary conversation. On one particular day when I returned from work, I noticed that our pastor hastily made his exit as soon as I arrived. This abrupt departure felt odd, and my instincts immediately signaled that something was not right. Ava's demeanor that evening further heightened my suspicions. Initially, I thought I could shrug off these doubts, but seeing Ava and our pastor together kept these uncertainties alive in my mind. Additionally, after I had raised concerns about the money Ava was receiving from our pastor, she stopped disclosing these transactions to me and began to hide them. I remained oblivious to the continued financial support until one day, while tidying up a clothing drawer, I discovered a stash of money. This find left me both surprised and disappointed, realizing that Ava had been deceitful about stopping the monetary gifts from our pastor. At first, I considered confronting Ava immediately about the hidden money, but I hesitated, knowing it could risk my ability to learn the full extent of her relationship with the pastor. Ava had always justified his frequent visits as necessary for prayers for her and the baby, and I wanted to believe her. To ensure I had evidence for our upcoming discussion, I discreetly turned on my phone's camera to record. Ava seemed shocked to see me home so early and was visibly unnerved when she noticed the pistol I had placed beside me. I ignored her queries and pointed her towards the videos I had queued up on the computer. Her initial shock quickly shifted to an attempt to regain her composure. Instead of showing remorse, she defiantly claimed she would now bring John over more frequently, now that I was aware of their meetings. Her boldness stunned me, and for the first time, I addressed her with palpable anger, demanding that she leave our home. Jenny's response was chilling, filled with veiled threats. She hinted that she and her associates were adept at concocting lies that could severely damage my reputation. She even suggested that they could falsely accuse me of serious crimes, boasting about their capability to manipulate videos and orchestrate setups. Unwavering and determined, I stood my ground, challenging her manipulative schemes and refusing to be swayed by her intimidation. In a moment fueled by anger, I removed her rings and confiscated the house key from her. As she left the house, she attempted to negotiate, urging me to reconsider my decision. Despite her pleas, I was resolute and made sure to capture the entire confrontation on my video, planning to use it as evidence in a discussion with Sally the next day. What I discovered next was more shocking than I could have imagined. The situation was far worse than anything I had expected. In the heat of the moment, hearing Ava moan in pleasure from inside the house sent me into a blind rage. I don't even recall how quickly I got out of my car and sprinted towards our house. Upon reaching the door, my anger took over, and I forcefully entered. I found our pastor and confronted him directly. Although I was mindful of Ava's pregnancy and restrained myself from harming her, my fury was directed entirely at him. Had Ava not stepped in, the situation could have escalated even further. The pastor quickly left the premises, clad only in his underpants and carrying his clothes. After he departed, Ava broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. She insisted that their interaction was innocent, claiming he had only come to pray for her and the baby. Yet, I could hardly believe she was still attempting to deceive me after being caught in such a compromising situation. The realization dawned on me, Ava was having an affair with our pastor. This explained the mysterious money exchanges. I demanded to know the duration of their affair, but Ava vehemently denied any romantic involvement. Given her steadfast denial, I knew she would never admit to the truth. At that moment, I decided it was necessary to remove her from our home. Ava was left outside in just her bathrobe and flip-flops, pleading for me to let her back in. The neighbors, drawn by the noise, came out to inquire about the disturbance. Fortunately, one kind neighbor offered to drive Ava to her parents' house. Before Ava arrived at her parents' home, I called them to explain the situation. Initially, her parents were skeptical of my accusations. However, once Ava reached their home, they began to understand the gravity of the situation and started bombarding my phone with calls, seeking further explanations. I chose not to respond to their calls because I simply wasn't in the frame of mind to engage in conversation. This whole ordeal unfolded 3 weeks ago, and since then, I've found it difficult to think clearly. Thoughts of Ava dominate my mind, and it's excruciating to accept that despite my endeavors to be an exemplary husband, she betrayed me with our pastor. At the moment, I'm engulfed in confusion and uncertainty about how to proceed. I had always imagined us raising our children together, not as separated parents. Yet, the stark reality that I cannot continue a life with someone who has been unfaithful looms large. I haven't yet disclosed her infidelity to the church, although both she and our pastor have been incessantly calling and texting me, pleading for a chance to discuss the matter. Update 1. Your feedback has been enlightening, and you're absolutely correct. I should have been more vigilant about the warning signs from the beginning. They were clearly evident, yet I held on to our marriage, hoping against hope. Just 2 days ago, on a Sunday, I saw our pastor at church. It was the first time I had attended in 5 weeks, and his reaction to seeing me there was noticeably uneasy. After the service, he called me into his office and beseeched me not to reveal what I had seen. Unlike Ava, he at least showed some caution. In that moment, I pressed him about how long his affair with Ava had been going on. Astonishingly, he admitted that it began even before Ava and I were dating, indicating that he had been part of her deception from the start. This revelation shattered me. Ava's infidelity wasn't just a betrayal, it ridiculed my commitment and love, making me feel like an utter fool. I wanted to confront him then and there, but the church was bustling with congregants, and creating a scene would have jeopardized any strategic approach I might take. So, I maintained my calm, although it was incredibly challenging. I had hoped Ava would be at church that day, but she was nowhere to be seen, nor were her parents. This absence was particularly telling given the circumstances. Before this incident, there had been murmurs about our pastor's inappropriate relations with younger members of the congregation, though no one had dared to confront him. Given his history and the weekly donations that the church collected, I suspected he might also be misappropriating church funds for personal use. After he pleaded with me to keep his affair secret, I proposed a condition for my silence, leveraging the situation to gain some control over the unfolding events. He reluctantly admitted to misappropriating church funds for his personal needs. Recognizing an opportunity to impart a lesson, I was surprised when he agreed to confess to the entire congregation. He committed to making this confession the following Sunday and to seek forgiveness from the church members. Despite his agreement, my instincts told me something was off. It seemed improbable that he would willingly subject himself to such public humiliation without some hidden agenda. Just yesterday, Ava tried to contact me again using a different phone number. She had been persistently trying to reach me over the past few weeks, which led me to block her earlier attempts. Ava claimed she had visited my house multiple times, but found no one at home. The house had been empty because I had moved out 3 days after evicting her. The vivid memories of them together in my living room were too painful to bear. In our conversation, Ava pleaded for a second chance, expressing her concern about raising the baby alone. However, her words seemed insincere and desperate. I responded coolly, informing her that I would only consider discussing responsibilities for the child if a paternity test confirmed that I was indeed the father. I promised to update everyone once we proceeded with the test. Update 2, hello everyone, I am deeply thankful for the incredible support I've received from this community. I also want to apologize for the delay in providing this update. After suggesting a paternity test, Ava initially resisted, claiming that I was making things unnecessarily complicated. This resistance led me to suspect that she might have doubts about the paternity herself. We eventually went ahead with the paternity test, which confirmed my suspicions. I was not the father of the baby. I had braced myself for this possibility from the moment Ava hesitated about the test. When her parents learned the truth, they were understandably disappointed and pressed her to reveal the real father's identity. She found herself unable to respond. I knew the answer and informed them that the father was indeed our pastor. The revelation shattered everyone involved. We received the paternity test results on the day of our church's midweek service. Overwhelmed with a mix of anger and betrayal, I decided it was time to confront the pastor. Regardless of the paternity outcome, I had resolved to end my marriage with Ava. I had already contacted a lawyer and had the divorce papers prepared. Armed with the divorce papers and fueled by the betrayal, I approached the confrontation with a clear head, ready to finalize the separation from Ava and address the pastor's misconduct. When I arrived at the church, I made my way directly to the front, intent on addressing the congregation. Our pastor was in the midst of delivering the sermon and clearly understood my intentions as soon as I approached. He refused to hand over the microphone when I requested it, signaling discreetly for me to desist. However, I ignored his gestures. As he continued to withhold the microphone, I raised my voice, ensuring that everyone within the church could hear me clearly. Determined to bring the truth to light, I started to expose the pastor's wrongdoing. I shared the disturbing truth about his misconduct with everyone present, which left the congregation in a state of shock. They listened in silence, visibly stunned by the revelations. Realizing that showing the video footage was impractical in that setting, I instead played a voice recording of a recent conversation with the pastor. In this recording, he confessed to his affair with Ava and to misusing church funds. He was unaware that I had recorded our discussion, and I had kept that fact from him. The pastor's expression upon hearing the recording was unforgettable, a mix of shock and disbelief. He was completely taken aback by the revelation that I had captured our conversation, providing irrefutable evidence should he attempt to deny his actions. With this evidence presented openly, I was confident it would significantly impact both his career and his personal life, and indeed, it did. The church community, deeply disappointed by his actions, demoted him. Additionally, the church suffered a loss of many members who had once seen our pastor as a paragon of virtue, a man who preached vehemently against moral failings. Their disillusionment was palpable, as it became clear he had not been practicing what he preached. As for Ava, despite her pleas and her parents' interventions, we proceeded with the divorce. She is now approaching her due date and living with her parents, who, despite their disappointment, have provided her shelter. After exposing the pastor, I chose to stop attending the church, fully aware that the scandal had rapidly become the talk of the town. This decision was difficult, but necessary under the circumstances. In the wake of the revelations, Ava has seen a significant decline in her social circle, losing many friends and supporters who were dismayed by her actions. The community's reaction was a testament to the gravity of the betrayal and the disappointment that resonated with many who had believed in us. The latest update regarding Ava's former affair partner came just recently. His wife has completed their divorce proceedings, and he has been compelled to provide an exhaustive account of all the church funds he handled during his tenure as pastor. Given the circumstances, it seems quite predictable what will be uncovered in this investigation. This ongoing saga continues to weigh heavily on me. While I grapple with the pain and hurt from Ava's betrayal, I have come to realize that enduring this ordeal is preferable to continuing a life built on the lies of a marital union with someone unfaithful. I cannot overstate how much I appreciate the support from all of you during this challenging time. The messages, calls, and words of encouragement have been a beacon of light in what has been a very dark chapter of my life. That was a great story. Now let's move to the next story. I'm a 33-year-old man, happily married to Summer, who is 28, for the past 4 years. Our relationship began in a somewhat serendipitous manner right after I completed college. We both found ourselves in the same job training program, and it was there that the seeds of our affection were planted. Initially, neither of us was quick to confess our feelings. The hesitation on my part stemmed from a recent tumultuous relationship. I was wary of diving into something new too hastily, wanting to ensure I didn't repeat past mistakes. Over time, however, our connection deepened, and we found ourselves drawn closer together. Finally, we reached a point where we could no longer hide our feelings. We admitted our mutual attraction and soon transitioned from friends to a committed relationship. After 2 years of dating, we decided to tie the knot and moved into a larger home to start our married life. Living with Summer proved to be an exhilarating experience. Her vibrant personality and penchant for surprises kept our daily life exciting and unpredictable. As newlyweds, we shared a deep bond, enjoying every possible moment together. We made it a point to integrate activities that strengthened our relationship, such as dining, shopping, and even bathing together, based on advice I had read about spending quality time with your partner. Before getting married, Summer and I had agreed to postpone having children. We wanted to ensure that we were fully ready for such a responsibility and wished to enjoy each other's company without the distractions and demands of parenthood. Summer worked as a secretary at a leading tech company, while I was employed in the construction industry. Our jobs provided us with a decent income that supported a comfortable yet modest lifestyle. We both harbored ambitions for career advancements in the future. Personality-wise, Summer was the extrovert in our relationship, able to make friends effortlessly and light up any room she entered. I, on the other hand, was much more introverted. My close relationships were few, primarily with my older brother, as I found it challenging to open up to new people. Summer's best friend, Claire, had been by her side since their early school days. They were incredibly close, so much so that they could easily be mistaken for sisters, with their blonde hair, similar eye color, and matching personalities. Claire was like family to us, and she visited our home often. She worked as a lawyer, and her husband owned his own business. We often planned family outings and made it a point to meet up at least twice a month. Although I'm an introvert, I made a concerted effort to build a relationship with Claire's husband. Despite my efforts, our interactions always seemed forced and awkward. However, I never expressed any discontent when Summer and Claire arranged outings or family vacations, recognizing the importance of these relationships to Summer. I fully recognized that Summer's intention behind our social outings was simply for us to have fun and take a break from our busy work schedules. Additionally, I viewed these gatherings as an opportunity to challenge my introverted tendencies and engage more openly in social settings. It's crucial to mention that Claire's husband wasn't a stranger to me. Summer had developed a close bond with him over the couple of years they had known each other before I became part of her life. At first, I had no suspicions of any inappropriate behavior between them. My view changed unexpectedly when Claire asked to meet privately one day. We met at a local cafe, and right from the start, it was evident that Claire was extremely distressed. Without hesitation, Claire confided in me, "I believe my husband is being unfaithful." This statement puzzled me because her husband had always seemed utterly devoted to her. He had consistently shown her the utmost respect and affection, making her the center of his world during our social outings. This began to subtly impact my relationship with Summer. She frequently made comparisons between how Claire's husband treated Claire and how I treated her. Summer pointed out actions he took that I seemingly overlooked, which started to irritate me. These comparisons hinted that Summer might be feeling envious of Claire's relationship. Though she never explicitly stated it, her actions spoke volumes about her feelings. Summer's apparent jealousy became more evident whenever Claire received lavish gifts from her husband. Claire would excitedly tell Summer about each gift, discussing them with great enthusiasm during their phone conversations. However, as soon as each call ended, Summer's demeanor would shift significantly. She would make negative comments about Claire, questioning whether she truly deserved such expensive gifts. This included instances like when Claire received 2 costly bracelets in just 3 months. Despite witnessing these dynamics, I decided not to bring up my concerns with Claire or her husband. I assumed that a certain level of envy was natural among friends and that it was just a part of their dynamic. When Claire confided in me about her suspicions that her husband was cheating, I was genuinely shocked. I refrained from defending him, knowing that it would be inappropriate and possibly counterproductive under the circumstances. As I tried to offer her some comfort, it occurred to me that it was odd for Claire to discuss such a sensitive issue with me instead of Summer, her best friend and my wife. Curious, I inquired why she had chosen to confide in me. Her answer left me utterly speechless. Claire revealed that she suspected her husband was having an affair with Summer. The idea that my wife could be involved with her best friend's husband was astounding. I instinctively reassured Claire that such a thing was impossible. As far as I was concerned, I was a devoted husband, constantly showing Summer love and attention. Although I might not have lavished her with as many gifts as Claire's husband did for Claire, I always made sure to celebrate special occasions with thoughtful presents. Despite my initial disbelief, Claire's revelation planted a seed of doubt in my mind. I began to fear that there might be some truth to her suspicions. Reflecting on Summer's recent behavior only added to my concerns. I noticed that Summer had indeed been acting differently. She no longer prioritized time with me as she once had, and there was a new kind of excitement and glow about her whenever she prepared to go out. Moreover, Summer had become more distant. Even when we were together in the same room, there was a palpable sense of her being mentally absent. Our conversations had grown strained, lacking the effortless flow they used to have. Her sense of humor, which I had always loved, seemed to have faded. She no longer laughed at my jokes or engaged in light-hearted banter as we used to. This strained dynamic was troubling. It made me increasingly anxious about our relationship and led me to scrutinize every interaction and every change in her demeanor. The joy and intimacy that had once defined our relationship seemed to be slipping away, replaced by formality and detachment. As I grappled with these unsettling changes, I realized I needed to confront the situation directly. The thought of discussing Claire's suspicions with Summer was daunting, but it was necessary to address the growing rift between us and to uncover the truth behind these troubling changes in our marriage. At the time, I thought it might be a passing phase, but I was mistaken. In addition to these changes, Summer had recently updated her wardrobe with tighter and more revealing clothing. She wore these outfits both to work and whenever she went out, making her appear much younger and more alluring. I wasn't the type to criticize my wife's choice of clothing, so I never raised any objections. Little did I know that Summer had been wearing these seductive dresses to attract her best friend's husband. After Claire shared her suspicions with me, we decided to conduct our own investigation before jumping to conclusions. Once we returned home, I waited for Summer to fall asleep so I could check her phone. However, her phone was devoid of any incriminating evidence. I also scoured all her social media accounts to see if she had been communicating with Claire's husband there, but I couldn't find any traces. I continued my search for a week and even examined her work laptop, but found nothing. At one point, I felt guilty for trying to find something that might not even exist. Nevertheless, considering how distant we had become in just a few weeks, I was convinced that she was involved with someone, even if it wasn't Claire's husband. On the contrary, I had no knowledge that Claire had hired a private investigator to tail her husband. It wasn't until after about a week and some days of the PI monitoring his activities that Claire's suspicions were confirmed. Indeed, Summer was involved in an affair with Claire's husband. When we saw all the pictures and videos of them together, kissing and engaging in other behaviors that cheaters do, it shattered our hearts. It's hard to say who was the most devastated among us. Perhaps it was Claire, because discovering that the two people she trusted most had betrayed her was an immense blow. As for me, I wasn't just heartbroken, I was furious. It was painful to realize that all my sacrifices were on the verge of being in vain due to a wife who couldn't find contentment. She always had her eyes on everything Claire's husband did for Claire, and in the end, she betrayed her best friend and wrecked 2 marriages. Once Claire shared all the evidence with me, I made an effort to remain composed on that initial day. I didn't stay at home because I was afraid of what I might do to Summer. I had to meet with Claire because she was the only one who could truly understand my pain. After consoling each other, I dropped her off at her house and found a motel to spend the night. Ironically, sleep eluded me. Deep wounds festered as I was tormented by thoughts of Claire's husband being entangled with my wife. These disturbing notions haunted my mind relentlessly. During that troubling period, I began piecing together a disconcerting puzzle. Gradually, the reasons for our lost intimacy became painfully clear. The next morning was a weekend. I decided to return home with a heavy heart. Summer was there, completely unperturbed by my overnight absence. Her indifference fueled my growing anger and frustration. Just seeing her filled me with a storm of emotions. I struggled to keep them in check but eventually failed. The need to confront her about the situation became overwhelming. When I mentioned hearing rumors about her involvement with Claire's husband, she froze. Her eyes widened in shock as she asked, "How did you find out?" I had anticipated her denial. True to form, she didn't deviate from that script. She earnestly tried to convince me it was absurd to believe she would betray her best friend or cheat on me. Her performance was remarkably convincing. Under different circumstances, I might have believed her. Her voice was steady, her eyes sincere, almost pleading. However, I had undeniable evidence. I couldn't help but chuckle at her obliviousness. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out my phone. I showed her the pictures and videos Claire had sent me. The change in Summer's demeanor was instantaneous and profound. She quickly shifted tactics, claiming someone was trying to frame her. She insisted the videos and pictures were misleading, not what they appeared to be. Despite her protests, the reality was clear. The evidence was irrefutable, displayed right before our eyes. No amount of pleading could alter what had been captured. The trust between us had been irrevocably shattered. Our relationship lay in painful fragments, a stark contrast to what it once was. In the face of such undeniable betrayal, I felt a profound sense of loss. The life we had built together now seemed like a fragile illusion, broken beyond repair. As I stood there, holding my phone with the incriminating evidence, I realized that nothing would ever be the same. The truth had been laid bare, leaving no room for reconciliation. Summer's attempts to explain and justify her actions fell on deaf ears. The damage was done, and the betrayal was too deep to overlook. With a heavy heart, I turned away from her. The weight of the truth was overwhelming, leaving me to grapple with the painful reality of our fractured relationship. The silence between us was deafening, a testament to the broken trust that could never be mended. Our lives had been irreversibly changed by the harsh light of truth. I reminded her that the evidence came directly from her best friend, Claire, making it impossible to be fabricated. Before I could say anything further, Summer erupted in a furious outburst, her voice echoing through the room. She shouted vehemently, claiming that Claire was trying to destroy our marriage. According to her, Claire had always been jealous of her. Honestly, this was the last thing I expected to hear. Summer's performance was nothing short of theatrical. Without giving me a chance to respond, she grabbed her car keys and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. Her abrupt departure didn't worry me, as I assumed she would eventually return. What I didn't foresee was that Summer would confront Claire directly. While I stayed home, sifting through the evidence, I received a call from Claire. She informed me that Summer had shown up at her house in a fit of rage. Summer had offended Claire deeply and even damaged some of her belongings. The result was a complete breakdown of their friendship. This felt surreal to me, as I couldn't understand why Summer would confront Claire after being caught red-handed. It simply didn't make any sense. Shortly after leaving Claire's house, Summer returned home. She appeared calm and collected, as if nothing had happened. Her composure was unnerving. When I questioned her about the incident with Claire, her response was chilling. I wanted to put her in her place for a long time, she said nonchalantly. Her words spoke volumes, revealing a side of her I had never seen before. In that moment, I realized I had been blinded by love. It became clear that Summer's affection for Claire was not as genuine as it seemed. She had secretly harbored resentment towards her friend's success, all the while pretending to care. Later that evening, I decided to visit Claire at the hospital. The extent of the harm inflicted by Summer on her longtime best friend was shocking. Claire, always the peaceful one, had borne the brunt of Summer's unpredictable nature. Between the two of them, Summer had always been the more volatile, while Claire tended to be calm and composed. Seeing Claire in the hospital bed, battered and bruised, filled me with a profound sense of sorrow and regret. I couldn't believe that the woman I loved was capable of such cruelty. The realization that Summer had been harboring such bitterness and jealousy all along was a hard pill to swallow. As I sat beside Claire, I couldn't help but reflect on the years of friendship between them. It seemed so genuine on the surface, but now I could see the cracks that had been hidden beneath. Claire's forgiving nature was evident even in her injured state. She assured me that she would heal, but the emotional wounds inflicted by her best friend would take much longer to mend. Returning home, I found Summer sitting on the couch, her expression unreadable. The atmosphere was tense, heavy with unspoken words. I knew that our relationship had been irreparably damaged. In the days that followed, I struggled to come to terms with the truth. The woman I thought I knew was a stranger, and the life we had built together felt like a fragile illusion, shattered by her actions. The trust between us was gone, replaced by a chasm of doubt and betrayal. Summer's actions had not only destroyed her friendship with Claire but had also shattered my faith in her. As I navigated the aftermath of these events, I realized that sometimes, love blinds us to the true nature of those we hold dear. The facade of affection can mask deeper, darker emotions, and when the truth is revealed, it can be devastating. Claire had her own distinct qualities that, I believe, Summer envied. It wasn't merely about Claire's husband. I strongly suspected that Summer felt threatened by Claire's success and her seemingly effortless life. She seemed bent on taking away the one thing that mattered most to Claire. It became apparent that Summer didn't just harm Claire physically. She also inflicted deep emotional wounds by uttering words no best friend should ever say. Summer unleashed her frustrations in front of Claire and her husband, expressing her resentment. She accused Claire of always acting superior and flaunting her accomplishments and gifts. She even admitted to hating Claire for making her feel inferior. Claire revealed she was taken aback by this outburst. She had no idea that Summer harbored such resentment for so many years. With this revelation, I concluded that Summer was beyond redemption. If she could betray her best friend in such a manner, there was no telling what else she might do. She had shown herself capable of extreme actions, bordering on cold-blooded cruelty. I couldn't envision a future with a woman like that. The extent of her betrayal was shocking. Interestingly, even after her affair with Claire's husband was exposed, she attempted to reconcile with me. Although I informed her about consulting a divorce lawyer, I haven't initiated the paperwork yet. She seems to believe there's still a chance for us. Her behavior has shifted noticeably. She no longer goes out as frequently as before. Her attempts to mend our relationship seemed almost desperate. I reflected on Claire's unique qualities. Her grace and strength were admirable. Perhaps these traits made Summer feel inadequate. Claire's success appeared effortless, something Summer struggled with. Summer's actions revealed a deep-seated insecurity. Her need to belittle Claire in front of others was a cry for validation. The realization that Summer envied Claire's seemingly perfect life became clearer with each passing day. The more I thought about it, the more I understood Summer's motivations. Her resentment had festered for years, hidden beneath a facade of friendship. This bitterness drove her to take drastic actions. Claire was deeply hurt by Summer's words and actions. The emotional scars would take much longer to heal than the physical ones. Summer's betrayal cut to the core of their friendship. Despite everything, Claire remained strong. Her resilience in the face of such treachery was remarkable. She chose to focus on healing and moving forward, rather than dwelling on the past. Summer's attempts to reconcile with me felt hollow. Her behavior was a stark contrast to her previous demeanor. She seemed to be trying to prove that she could change, but it was too little, too late. The trust between us was irreparably damaged. I couldn't forget the pain she had caused. Her actions had shattered the illusion of our relationship, leaving behind only fragments of what once was. As days turned into weeks, I found myself growing more distant from Summer. Her presence reminded me of the betrayal and deceit. The love I once felt had been replaced by a deep sense of disillusionment. I knew I had to make a decision about our future. Holding on to a broken relationship would only prolong the pain. It was time to move on and seek a new beginning. In the end, Claire's strength and grace were a reminder that true friendship and love are built on trust and mutual respect. Summer's actions had violated those fundamental principles, making it impossible to rebuild what was lost. The journey ahead would be challenging, but it was necessary for my own healing. Letting go of the past and embracing a future without Summer was the only way to find peace and happiness once again. Lately, Summer has been trying to rekindle certain aspects of our relationship that she had long neglected. She's making concerted efforts to seduce me and prepare meals, but her insincerity is glaringly obvious. Since discovering the truth about her betrayal, I've taken to dining out frequently, a routine I won't abandon until Summer is completely out of my life. When Claire and I first learned of Summer's infidelity, Claire asked me to keep my emotions in check and maintain the facade of a functional marriage, for the sake of appearances. However, I now find myself repulsed by Summer. The thought of being intimate with her is unbearable because my heart is no longer in it. Despite everything she has done, a part of me still harbors lingering feelings for her. This leaves me conflicted about what steps to take next. Even if we were to reconcile in the future, I fear she would betray me again. We've only been married for 4 years, and she's already been unfaithful. Simultaneously, I wish I could just kick her out of my house, tossing her belongings onto the lawn and exposing her infidelity to the neighbors. On another note, Claire officially divorced her husband last week. Summer has been subtly suggesting that Claire was never a suitable match for him. It's quite amusing that Summer still believes I bought into her lies about Claire plotting against her. She seems convinced our marriage will return to normal, but she is gravely mistaken. In any case, Claire has something planned for Summer, and I can't wait to see her reaction. Most importantly, I eagerly anticipate the day I can finally remove this unfaithful woman from my home. While awaiting Claire's signal, I relocated to a hotel because the sight of Summer repulsed me. In the meantime, Claire has fully recovered from the injuries she sustained during her altercation with Summer. She has taken legal action against Summer, suing her for alimony and damages. When Summer was served with the legal papers, she angrily showed up at my workplace, unaware that I had moved to a hotel. She vehemently refused to pay alimony to Claire, claiming that Claire had initiated the fight and she had merely defended herself. I knew this was a lie because, when she returned from Claire's house that day, she mentioned something about putting Claire in her place, which didn't sound like self-defense at all. Summer's delusion that she can mend our broken relationship is almost laughable. Her efforts to seduce me and cook elaborate meals are transparent attempts to win back my affection, but they only serve to deepen my disgust. The sincerity she tries to project is nothing more than a thin veneer over her deceitful nature. Despite Claire's advice to keep up appearances, my disdain for Summer grows each day. I can no longer look at her without feeling a surge of revulsion. The idea of sharing any form of intimacy with her is out of the question. My feelings for her, though still present in some residual form, are overshadowed by the betrayal she has inflicted upon me. The thought of our 4-year marriage being marred by infidelity is a bitter pill to swallow. While I contemplate the possibility of reconciliation, the fear of being hurt again looms large. I fantasize about the day I can expose her lies to the world, throwing her belongings out and making her deceit known to all. Claire's recent divorce from her husband has only added to the complexity of the situation. Summer's delusions about Claire's unsuitability for her ex-husband and her unfounded accusations of Claire plotting against her only highlight her inability to face the truth. She clings to the hope that our marriage will return to its former state, oblivious to the reality that it's beyond repair. As I wait for Claire's plan to unfold, my anticipation grows. Relocating to a hotel has given me the distance I need from Summer, whose presence has become unbearable. Claire's recovery and her decision to take legal action against Summer bring a sense of justice to the situation. Summer's reaction to the legal papers, her anger and her lies, only solidify my decision to end this farce of a marriage. In the end, I look forward to the day I can finally reclaim my life, free from Summer's toxic influence. The road ahead will be challenging, but it's a necessary step toward healing and rebuilding. Summer's attempts to manipulate and deceive are futile, and her eventual removal from my life will mark the beginning of a new chapter, one defined by truth and integrity. I told her that her problems were no longer my concern. She had created this mess herself and now had to face the consequences. To summarize, Claire had the upper hand in court, and the ruling was in her favor. The court ordered Summer to pay alimony and imposed an additional fine for her offensive behavior at Claire's home. Although I wasn't present during the court proceedings, Claire kept me updated on every detail. On the day I returned home, I finally did what I had been longing to do for a long time. When Summer saw me, she immediately assumed the victim's role, her tears flowing freely. I decided to distance myself from her and let her deal with the fallout of her actions. She had the audacity to call me the worst husband because I didn't support her through this ordeal. She believed I should have stood by her side, even in her deceitful pursuit of Claire. When she finished her tirade, I told her that husbands are meant to support loyal and faithful wives, not those who cheat and lie. What irritated me even more was her attempt to feign innocence. She looked at me with false bewilderment and asked what I meant by that. Seeing that fake innocence on her face infuriated me further. My voice rose as I shouted at her, my anger boiling over. I informed her that I was fully aware of her affair with her best friend's husband. I explained that I had to pretend I didn't know to let her experience the agony of shattered hope. As I spoke, I presented the divorce papers, placing them in front of her and requesting her signature. Upon seeing the papers, she dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face. She pleaded with me, claiming that she had lost everything and couldn't bear to lose me too. Despite her pleas, I remained firm. I had spent countless nights tormented by her betrayal, and now it was her turn to face the consequences of her actions. Her desperate attempts to win me back were futile. The trust between us had been irreparably broken. Summer's behavior had been reprehensible, and no amount of begging could change the fact that she had destroyed our marriage. Her actions had not only hurt me but had also caused immense pain to Claire. The facade she had maintained for so long had finally crumbled, revealing the true nature of her character. Claire had been a true friend to both of us, and yet Summer had chosen to betray her in the most heinous way. The court's decision was a reflection of the justice that needed to be served. Summer's deceitful actions had caught up with her, and now she had to face the legal and personal repercussions. As I watched her kneel on the floor, pleading for forgiveness, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness for the love we had lost and relief that I could finally move on from this toxic relationship. Her words, once filled with charm and deceit, now fell on deaf ears. The day had come for me to reclaim my life. The divorce papers were the first step toward a future free from betrayal and pain. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary for my own well-being. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to face it with strength and determination. Claire's support throughout this ordeal had been invaluable. She had shown me the importance of true friendship and integrity. Her strength in facing her own struggles had inspired me to find my own. Together, we had navigated through the storm of betrayal and emerged stronger. In the days that followed, I began to rebuild my life. The memories of our marriage, now tainted by deceit, started to fade. I focused on healing and rediscovering myself. The process was gradual, but with each passing day, I felt more empowered. Summer's attempts to contact me continued, but I ignored them. Her messages, filled with apologies and pleas, were a stark reminder of the life I had left behind. I knew that engaging with her would only reopen old wounds. Finally, the day came when Summer was no longer a part of my life. The divorce was finalized, and I felt a sense of liberation. The weight of her betrayal had been lifted, and I was free to pursue a future filled with hope and authenticity. I informed her that it was too late and proceeded with my plan to throw her belongings onto the front lawn, just as I had envisioned. To my surprise, Summer started crying and chasing after me inside the house, which was quite unexpected. Nevertheless, I followed through with my decision, making sure to remove all her possessions and scatter them across the lawn. All these events unfolded last week. Since then, she has been persistently calling me, leaving numerous voicemails, and sending multiple messages daily on all our shared social media platforms. She even went as far as contacting my older brother to intervene on her behalf, but I requested that he block her, and he complied. I will provide another update once she signs the divorce papers. Update 2. Hello everyone. For those wondering if I felt a sense of satisfaction when I evicted Summer from my home, the answer is yes. It felt like a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders, and I wish I could repeat the act. I asked Summer to leave my house last month. On her last visit, she unexpectedly found Claire with me, which greatly upset her. I know she never expected to see Claire there, and it wasn't a pleasant sight for her. She was also surprised to discover that Claire and I had become close friends while she was experiencing pain and misery elsewhere. Here's an interesting tidbit: after I kicked Summer out of my house, she attempted to return to her mother's home. However, when her mother learned about her betrayal of her best friend and infidelity to me, she disowned her and expelled her from the house as well. I won't deny that I took some satisfaction in Summer's reaction when she encountered Claire at my house. I relished the look of defeat on her face when Claire answered the door. We didn't allow her inside because she brought negative energy with her. Perhaps if I hadn't intervened, she might have offended Claire on my property. I sternly warned her that if she ever showed up at my house again, would have her arrested. Initially, she didn't leave immediately. She stayed and caused a scene, accusing me of cheating on her with Claire. When Claire heard this accusation, she reacted with anger and shouted at Summer, stating that she wasn't a backstabbing person like her and would never betray her best friend by getting involved with her husband. We hoped that after exchanging words, Summer would leave in shame. However, despite everything Claire and I said to her that day, she remained on the porch and continued to argue. Her behavior escalated to the point where it disturbed the peace in the neighborhood, and neighbors began to come outside. At that juncture, I had no choice but to call the police. She was subsequently arrested. I'm delighted to announce that Summer and I are now divorced. As for Summer, she is completely out of my life. She lost everything: her husband, her best friend, her financial stability, and even her mother's support. To make matters worse, Claire's husband ended their relationship after their affair came to light. I'm sure she's somewhere filled with regret. She got what she deserved. I'm grateful to be part of such an incredible community. Thank you all for your support and understanding during this difficult time. Your encouragement has been invaluable as I navigate this challenging chapter of my life. Moving forward, I am focused on rebuilding my life. The process of healing has begun, and each day brings new hope. I have reconnected with old friends and pursued interests that I had neglected during my tumultuous marriage. Claire has been a constant source of strength and support. Our friendship has deepened, and we find solace in each other's company. The bond we share is built on trust and mutual respect, a stark contrast to the deceit and betrayal I experienced with Summer. The experience has taught me valuable lessons about trust, loyalty, and the importance of surrounding oneself with genuine people. While the journey has been painful, it has also been enlightening. I am emerging from this ordeal stronger and more resilient. As for Summer, her actions have led to her own downfall. The choices she made have consequences, and she is now facing them. The reality of her situation is a stark reminder that deceit and betrayal ultimately lead to one's undoing. In closing, I want to express my gratitude to this community once again. Your unwavering support has been a beacon of light during my darkest hours. Thank you for standing by me and offering words of encouragement. Here's to new beginnings and a brighter future.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and click on the little bell icon for notifications of new stories.